NFL Network newsroom. Well, after the 49ers win over the Steelers, Richard Sherman told our very own Michael Silver Pittsburgh was clearly missing what Big Ben brings to the team, saying, quote, "You don't understand what you've got till it's gone." Well, the Steelers will also be missing Vance McDonald as he's dealing with a shoulder sprain. McDonald's seen walking around the team facility on Tuesday with his arm in a sling. So far this season, McDonald has 10 catches for 88 yards and 2 touchdowns. Now, to help fill the void left by McDonald, according to NFL Network's Mike Garafolo and Tom Pelissero, the Steelers acquiring tight end Nick Vannett from the Seahawks in exchange for a 2020 fifth-round pick. This is the third 2020 draft pick Pittsburgh has traded away in the last 8 days, sending 2 of them to the Dolphins for Minkah Fitzpatrick. Well, as practice week ramps up for the Jaguars, according to NFL Network insider Ian Rappaport, Jalen Ramsey is expected to be at the team facility today. However, he's a little banged up as he's been receiving treatment for issues related to his lower back and hamstrings. Jalen also saying he had the flu earlier this week. Stay tuned to see if he plays Sunday against the Broncos. And the biannual congressional football game taking place on Tuesday between members of Congress along with former NFL players as they took on the U.S. Capitol Police. The game benefiting and having a very big impact 3 nonprofit organizations: the Capitol Police Memorial Fund, Our Military Kids, and Advantage for Kids. The game won by the U.S. Capitol Police 14-4. Former Redskins linebacker Ken Harvey served as one of the coaches and said it was great seeing everyone come together, talking and being friends. So great to see the sport of football bringing people together. Okay.
That's right, and we've got some special guests here in studio now, Will Selma, to talk about just that, making the game better and safer as well. It is a pleasure to welcome the NFL's Executive Vice President for Health and Safety Innovation and the NFL's Chief Medical Officer and Neurosurgeon. So many things to say about you two in this intro. Please welcome to the show Jeff Miller and Dr. Alan Sills.
Good morning. How are we doing?
Thanks for having us.
Of course. Thanks for coming on.
Being here so bright and early. Let's talk rule changes to just kick this thing off. Of course, we're trying to make the game better and safer, and one of the recent rules was about initiating contact with a helmet. Why did that rule happen? What kind of data went into making the decision?
Sure. It's a great interaction that we have on the health and safety side with our competition committee. We've taken a look at 600-plus concussions, frame by frame, trying to judge the sorts of impacts, wear on the helmet, what sort of behaviors players are engaged in. And we shared that information with our competition committee, and we saw this trend of players lowering their head to initiate contact. And we also measured how frequently that could occur in a concussion and the rate that a player is more likely to suffer a concussion or a neck injury when they engage in that behavior was so substantial that the competition committee took a look at it and decided, hey, you know what, we need to do something about prohibiting this behavior. Started last year. It's obviously going to take a little time for people to change their behavior, but it's a step in the right direction for the safety of the game.
Been a sideline reporter for many years, and when I first started doing it, when a player would get a hard hit, they'd go to the sideline, look at the doctor, and then be sent back into the game. Now there's this blue tent. They go in the blue tent. It's guarded like it's Fort Knox. You're not allowed in the blue tent, but the doctors are in the blue tent. Sometimes the guys go into the locker room. Other times they're back on the field. What's going on in the blue tent?
The father of the blue tent, right?
Take us into the blue tent.
I could have used that for my intro.
So the blue tent is our sideline medical examination tent. So it's basically like having an exam room on the sideline. So anytime we suspect a concussion injury, the player, along with the team doctor and our independent neurological consultant who's on the sideline, goes into the tent to conduct a concussion examination in private. And based on the results of that examination, if the player's cleared, they can go back in the game. If they're not cleared, then they go to the locker room for a more extensive evaluation. And every player in the NFL gets the same exact exam. It's dictated by our concussion protocol, which our head, neck, and spine committee, a group of expert doctors that we engage to help us advise on this topic, they put that protocol together every year. They review it, and so every player gets the same exact exam. And if they're diagnosed with a concussion, every player goes through the same exact process to get back to play, which is a 5-step return-to-play process, an examination by another independent neuroconsultant, a neuropsychologist, and the team doctor.
All right, now we've seen some early retirements this offseason. Andrew Luck retired, Rob Gronkowski retired, and Rob specifically said that marijuana and CBD would have extended his career. And this is not in the Cheech and Chong way. This is for his mind and his body and his spirit. Now, when you consider Calvin Johnson recently coming out and saying, I smoke weed after every game for my body, and guys like Josh Gordon, who have been suspended multiple times for that exact same thing, is the NFL leaning towards maybe easing the way they look at the policy surrounding marijuana use or CBD use?
Well, right now, marijuana is still on our list of banned substances. You know, there's a list of substances that the league and the Players Association together have agreed cannot be used, and so marijuana is still on that list. CBD has a problem right now with purity of supply. So there are a lot of CBD products that are contaminated with THC, which is the active molecule in marijuana. So players are always responsible for what they put in their bodies, and if they put something in that has a tainted substance, then, then they can be in violation of the policy. With that being said, we've just created a new joint pain management committee between the league and the Players Association, and one of the charges of that committee is looking at alternatives for pain management. And so everything is on the table to be looked at, CBD included, but also a lot of non-medicine type alternatives. So we're trying to look at as many new and innovative ways as we can to treat both acute and chronic pain in players, and I anticipate that that'll be part of the conversation.
We've covered a lot of stories here. One of the more unusual ones was this past summer, the Antonio Brown helmet saga, where he insisted on wearing his old helmet, which was not approved by the league or the Players Association. Why was that helmet not suitable for game use, and where did both of you come out on that story in general? Because we talked about it a lot.
Yes, it got talked about a lot.
Yes.
And I think Nate has a special insight because you did a piece on this last year, as I recall. So we should have just put you up in front of the cameras to talk about it. Well, we've worked really closely with the Players Association over the last few years on health and safety generally, but on engineering specifically. And one of the outcomes of that was the decision to rank and prohibit certain helmets that just don't perform very well, either in the laboratory or on field from an injury perspective. And so it was a transition year last year. A lot of players moved from one helmet to another. I think the stat is about half of the league actually changed helmets last year to something that was better performing. And we have certain standards. One is that helmets have to be certified, they can't be too old, and they actually have to pass our testing protocol. In the case of Antonio Brown's helmet, he didn't satisfy those. And so it became newsworthy for that purpose. But the goal of the whole program, including that with the Players Association, their intent too was to move players into better performing helmets. And we've seen changes, significant changes by the players in that regard. And to the extent that that story got more attention for the work that we're doing and it made people aware that there are better performing helmets and they can add to the safety of the game, then that was a positive from my perspective.
And one thing about that, we actually have data correlating how helmets test in the laboratory with how they perform on field. So we can actually say with a high degree of confidence that these helmets that test better on our testing are actually safer on field. They have a lower on-field injury rate. And that's why the league and the Players Association together felt so strongly that we really want players in those best performing helmets.
Well, let's keep talking about helmets because I know the league announced an initiative earlier this month. It's called the NFL Helmet Challenge. What is it? Who can participate? Tell me about it.
Well, everybody can participate, Kay, you included. So we've been working.
You saw some of my science projects from back in the day. I don't think
that volcano, Kay.
Yeah, I don't think so.
It was lit.
We've been working, like I mentioned, with the Players Association for a number of years now, with engineers from both sides to try to understand better what happens on field in terms of concussions and other head injuries and find ways to prevent them. So in other words, to improve the technology in the helmet. And so I think we've spent tens of millions of dollars at this point to get to the stage that we're in. And there has been progress among the helmets. It's been evolutionary. So really better helmet models on field today than just a couple of years ago as a result of a lot of the work that a lot of smart people are doing. And our engineers tell us, you know, the evolution's been good, but what we really need, and there's room for, is revolutionary improvement.
Okay.
Whether that be position-specific helmets. Hey, why does a quarterback wear the same helmet as a safety? They play a very different game in many ways.
No doubt.
Right? The size of the impacts they feel, the frequency of those are very different. And so what we said is, okay, here's $3 million to entrepreneurs, small businesses, material scientists, engineers, and others. Come get some grant money from the NFL and then apply to this challenge. If you win, there's $1 million at the end of the whole thing. And all you have to do is create a helmet that tests better in the laboratory, as Dr. Sills mentioned, than any helmet we've ever tested before. You've got time to do it. We think it's possible. And we're really excited about the potential of all of this because we know that there's room for growth, and this is hopefully one way to stimulate it.
I'm going to pull back the curtain for our show. So when the Antonio Brown stuff is going on, I would get emails from helmet companies saying, hey, you should talk about our helmet. This is the topic of the day. And there's hundreds of them, all coming from out of the woodworks, some of them as like mom and pop shops, other ones from the big companies. How do you guys sift through what's nonsense, what's real, and where you really want to energize and put your backing behind?
It's sort of a simplistic answer, but science, science, science. And we in the PA could not be more aligned on this, which is if the helmet is testing well in the laboratory, great. If somebody has a new idea for part of a helmet, for a new face mask, or how to cushion something, or foam in the middle, Sean Springs is a really good example of this. I think he's been on air before. Those little innovations that he creates or others create, we want to continue to invest in and allow those things to grow and marry them up with the helmet companies. But either it's going to test well, it's going to make sense scientifically, or it's not. And so there's a lot of talk, and then there's the work that needs to be done, and we're focused over here on the work that needs to be done.
Now let's talk about the work that needs to be done. What is the biggest hurdle when it comes to creating a helmet for manufacturers or designers when it comes to making it comfortable, but most importantly, making it safer?
Yeah, I think there's two things that companies face. One is obviously always funding. Everyone needs capital to bring more ideas to market. But the other thing is that we have access to a unique data set that others don't have. Our engineers have studied every concussion in the NFL for 5 seasons and mapped it against 150 different variables. Who hit who, what speed, what direction, what part of the helmet. So we really have a comprehensive understanding of how are the injuries happening on field. And we can give that information to manufacturers to say, hey, if you're going to try to build a better helmet, these are the conditions on which it needs to perform, and this is how it needs to be designed. So we can share that uniquely with information that others just don't have.
This is fascinating. So you'll get these helmet submissions from any aspiring Tony Stark type who wants to design something, and they send it to you. How do you choose the winner, and how soon could we see these on the field protecting the heads of star players?
We need to call Tony Stark. I hadn't thought about it. It's a really good idea.
He's no longer with us, unfortunately.
It's a really good idea.
Spoiler!
Rest in peace, Tony.
Rest in peace. People have 18 months to come up with a submission. We're holding a symposium next month. Anybody who wants to come, can apply to come and hopefully learn a little bit about what the state of the science is around helmets, including incumbent manufacturers who are doing a lot of good work as it is. Right? But people who have new ideas can come join us. You'll have an 18-month timeline by which you need to develop a prototype. That prototype will be tested, same way that our helmets are tested now, with as advanced testing as you can do. The ones that test the best are the ones that are going to win $1 million. So
like you said,
it's a pretty good incentive.
It's like American Idol for science people.
It really is.
It's
Probably modestly less entertaining. But
I like
Play
it.
smart, playsafe.com/NFL Helmet Challenge.
There you go.
Jeff Miller, thank you guys for being here. Thank you being here, the father of the blue tent.
Who knew?
Alan Sills.
Dr. Sills. And thank you for all you do to make the game safer. We appreciate it, and we love seeing the advancements.
thanks for having us.
Thanks for having us here.
Absolutely.
Take care,
It's
guys.
really cool.
More Good Morning